Alright guys, we got the ferns all hung up there last night, so this morning we're going to get them watered in and try to get them all equal in water. And we got a few plugs in, so I thought I would kind of show you what we got. But I most importantly kind of wanted to show you how we water our ferns and the injectors that we use. So getting ready to plant a few pansies here today too. I'll probably show you some of that. Alright, let me get this camera turned around and I want to show you just how we do this. Okay, here's what we've got. We like to do everything from one spot, and we have picked the upper greenhouse here to do that. And on this side we've got two other greenhouses. We basically just run water hoses to those other greenhouses, and I know that sounds crazy because occasionally you will have them to freeze, but believe it or not, that's not that big of a problem. Every once in a while we'll have to pour a little hot water on them, get them thawed out, but that is no big deal really. So we do everything from right here. This is what I call the heartbeat of a greenhouse, and these injectors click when they're pumping. They're powered by water. These are chemilizer injectors, and they are a 1:100 ratio. So I learned pretty quick that pH is just as important as fertilizer or anything else. So what we do here is we correct the pH in our water. We add a certain amount of sulfuric acid in each one of these 15-gallon drums, and you can have your water tested. I went through Peter's laboratory to get my water tested and to find out how much sulfuric acid that I needed to add to this water to get that pH where I need it. Now different plants need different pH, so that is why we have a 5.5 pH barrel and a 6 pH barrel. Most of your plants will be just fine on that 6, but you've got some like calibrachoa and petunias that need a lower pH, so that is why we have two different ones. Our well water that we use is normally about 7.6 pH. And you wouldn't believe how after time that will absolutely ruin a plant. It can't take up the fertilizer that you're putting on it or anything else. So if you're starting a greenhouse or you're in the greenhouse business and just getting started, the most important thing you can do is get your water tested and get your pH right and learn what different plants need. It's critical. So what we do is we correct that pH through this injector first. They have a 1:100 ratio pump on them. They're powered by water. So we're coming just out of a hydrant here into the first injector. That corrects the pH in the water. It loops across into the second injector, which picks up the fertilizer. In this case, we're picking up CalMag, extra calcium and extra magnesium fertilizer, because that's what our water lacks. So we're kind of specifically using fertilizers that we need, you know, to kind of make up for what our well water lacks. So that's what we're using. A lot of times I like the Jack's Professional fertilizer. I've had real good luck with it. Now we'll use different ones for different things. We have a geranium feed, we have a petunia feed, but basically most of our plants get fed CalMag. That's what we do. Now I'll take you on down there to the other greenhouse. I'll show you the two different types of ferns that we use in the drip system. If you watched my last video, you saw us hanging the ferns. I'll kind of give you a little tour of that. Okay, here's what we've got in here. The majority of what you see here are Boston ferns, and that is what you see on porches most of the time. They need shade, at least partial shade. The sun will burn them. If you set them right out in the middle of the sun, it will burn them. So we get later on into the season and we'll have to put a shade on this greenhouse to protect them. But I learned a trick here a few years ago that seems to have been working pretty good for me. We also do a Kimberly Queen sun fern that is designed just to, you know, like you could even put it out around your pool or on concrete, right out in the heat, and it just flourishes. We're selling more of those all the time because they're tough. They can really take the heat. But I have started putting those on the top row above the Bostons, and that kind of helps them, gets them the heat that they need, and it also helps to protect the Bostons, which are hanging right under them. And I'll climb up here and show you the difference in these two ferns. They do have a different look. So here's your basic Boston fern. It's kind of a little bit fluffier, a little bit softer looking stem. And this is the Kimberly Queen fern. It kind of has a woody stem and a little different leaf. Now, as far as growth, they're both very comparable in their growth habit. And the Kimberly Queen does get huge. You won't believe what this little basket of fern will do given enough time. And by midway through the summer, those things are absolutely monstrous. So our ratio on these ferns, we're almost half and half anymore. We're getting awful close to it. We used to do a lot more Bostons, but as our customers begin to see the versatility of the Kimberly Queens, a lot of people are coming back with the Kimberly Queens instead of the Bostons. They can put them anywhere and they're going to serve the purpose. So, but let me show you this drip system right quick. First of all, after you come out of those chemicalizer injectors, you have to go through a pressure regulator and you have to go through a filter. These drippers, they're very, very sensitive, and it doesn't take much to stop them up. So you'll have to go through a pressure regulator and get them down to a certain amount of pressure, and then through a filter to keep the dirt out. So that's what that is. These are a Netafim system, and they are pressure compensating. All these drippers kick on at the same time. I'll come down here and show you how I control them. So we have each line of ferns controlled through a valve, and we can water about 4 of these lines at a time. If we try to do any more than that, then we get a little bit low on water pressure, and it doesn't seem to do as good of a job watering them evenly. So we'll do 4 rows at a time. There's the filter, the pressure regulator, and the filter that I mentioned. So you'll need to do that. We just hook a line right into that, and we'll water 4 of these lines at a time. So we can water this whole house in about an hour, but the thing is, I don't have to be here to do it. I'll turn the lines on, I'll go do something else, come back and check them in 20-25 minutes, and when they're all dripping through. On ferns, I like to drip them through every time I water them. They're a little bit sensitive to salt buildup, so when I water a fern, I'll let it dry down reasonably dry, and then when I do water it, I'll water it till that water runs clear through, and it flushes it every time so that there's no backup on the salts. So that's what we do. We've got about 550 ferns in here in this house, and that's just about all it will hold. We'll do different plants on those benches later. We can do impatiens and shade plants on this side, and we'll do heat-loving plants on this side. And there'll be plenty of sun on that side, and there'll be plenty of heat because I run this greenhouse very, very warm. So I'm going to finish up getting the last of those ferns placed and begin the watering process here, and then I will get back with you later. We'll probably plant a few pansies today. We need to get them in the dirt and get them going. They'll be the first plant that we'll sell. It's amazing how quickly they get to the selling stage. They grow fast, but we need to get them in the dirt, and that's probably what we'll do here just in a little bit, and I'll get back with you here in just a second. All right, we are getting started on planting the pansies and violas here. They're both an early frost-proof plant, and we need to get them out as soon as possible because that'll be the first thing that'll go. And Trina's already got started here and planted several flats. Thought I'd tell you a funny story. Back when we first started, we didn't know anything. She or I knew nothing about any of this process. We just kind of jumped into it and had no idea how to transplant anything. It was just a completely new experience for us. So the very first batch of plants that we got in, we have a neighbor around the road here that was a big help to us. We'd ask him any kind of questions that we had. He could usually answer them, and he would help us any way that he could. And he come over one day to see how we were getting along. He knew we were greenhorns, and he came to see what was going on, and walked in the greenhouse, and we had the trays filled here, and Trina was planting, and we would put a plug in and just so gently press that plug down into some dirt, and take a little teaspoon and and put some dirt around it, and oh, it was just such a gentle little process. And the guy walked in, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. He laughed and he said, well, I guess that's one way of doing it. So now looking back, we thought, you know, thinking he must have thought we were nuts, because it would take us forever to plant anything. And so now you can see these little plants are a whole lot tougher than what one might think. They come in, a full tray is 512 plants. So you can kind of see the size of the plant that we get. And this little old plug here comes in rooted. Show you what you can see. It's got a real nice little root ball on it there. They come in that way, and we just transplant them over into flats. Now this is an 804 flat is what we do. That's 32 plants in a tray. I like the 804s because the 32 is a little more space for each plant. I think it raises a little squattier plant, a little fuller plant, so that's the reason for that. But I asked Trina how many trays she thought she could plant in an hour, and there really isn't any way to tell, because every plant is a little different. And she could be planting these a whole lot faster than she might plant, say, an impatient or something else. So it's just, they're all different, but it's nothing for her to plant 100 flats, you know, before lunch. I know that. But this is how we do it, and usually we just fill the trays. We'll push the wheelbarrows to the greenhouse, fill the trays right about where we want them, and she plants and tags, and that's kind of the process. We got a few things in yesterday with the ferns, some spikes and different plugs. We're going to fill some more Blue Master baskets here in a little bit, and then we have a huge shipment coming in tomorrow. So this bench will be covered with plugs by the end of the day tomorrow, more than likely. So we've got our work cut out for us. But I thought I'd kind of pass along just a few of the little things that we do, why we do them, and we'll catch up with you guys on the next video.